I'm not going to be able to please everybody.
But now I'm like, oh, get up. And the most important thing I think to do is read investment news. Like we fall in love with the result of a thing and not the source of the thing.
But how it gets really dangerous of like worshiping people.
It's hard to covet what they have when you know them.
Hey, beautiful people. I'm Tina Morales.
And I'm Kiara Johnson.
And welcome to the Stories That Shape Us podcast, where we dive deep into the stories that have shaped who we are and who we're becoming.
We are so thrilled to have you join us. We are here to engage openly in hard conversations around faith, identity, relationships, and so much more.
Yes. If you want to peek into the journeys of healing and becoming, then we invite you to listen in on the conversation and leave transformed. Get ready for thought-provoking conversation, a whole lot of heart, and join us on this journey through the stories that shape us. Welcome back. We're here.
Oh, I was going to continue to jam.
We're back. We are back. And we are, I think we're already a little cautious with this conversation. I think as well as trying to like step into courageousness by like sharing our thoughts, what's coming up, and all of that in this conversation. So
we saw.
Everyone take a nice deep breath. And let's talk about this. So what we're talking about today is a topic very candidly, we're talking about just the idols in our life today. What things, what objects, what maybe people do we idolize and put in the position of God in our life?
Right.
So we started with first, we just wanted to get a quick definition of idol. Do you mind reading it?
Yeah, we said an image or representation of a god used as an object to worship.
An image or representation.
And we took a second to think about it, and we said, well, I mean, if you think about the literal definition of that, you might say, well, I don't have any idols. And then we were like, well, what does it mean to worship?
Yes.
Might be some idols, y'all. So what does it mean to worship? The feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for an object or a deity.
Yeah.
Feeling or expression of reverence and adoration.
Like, let's even just start with feeling. Because sometimes I think that it's really, I think we can become very judgmental of what we see expressed. And we can easily say, well, that person has an idol because they're expressing it very outwardly and candidly. But it's a feeling of reverence as well. A feeling of reverence or adoration.
Like deep in your heart.
Yeah.
The idols can kind of sit there.
Yeah. As we have this conversation, I think it's helpful for us to even just be very candid for ourselves.
Sure.
And I will start with saying, for me, I think of idol as like what I place, essentially like what becomes my God.
Right.
Right. And so like in terms of like what feelings of reverence, what do I adore? What do I worship? Because I think all of those things, worship becomes a feeling of, or an expression, right? So it becomes like an act based off of what's deep in my heart.
Right.
And so I think for a long time in my life, and I think this is still something that like the Lord is kind of like refining me with, is really idolizing people's perception.
Okay.
People's perception of me, right? So like, if you are pleased there is a deep feeling of like reverence and adoration for that. I adore when people are pleased, and that tells me I'm good. Whatever, like that becomes
feedback.
Becomes my God.
Feedback, yeah.
It becomes my motivator.
Wow, that's a good one. Because then you're going to chase after that.
Mm-hmm.
After, flawed people, very human people.
Yeah.
And what they think of you.
Yeah. Having to be able to confront that has been a journey of just kind of like, I'm not going to be able to please everybody.
Right.
And if I try, like that quote unquote God is faulty. Because it's ever changing.
Ever changing.
But that's in terms of just pivoting, in terms of like, how do we shift out of, and maybe that's the part where this conversation can go. How do we place those objects or those things or those people in their right position, so that, we can see God for who he is. Right.
I think it's, to your point, it's like a daily practice.
Yeah.
Too. It's a daily practice, because maybe throughout life people fight to rid themselves of different idols, depending on your season, culture, tons of reasons idols can kind of creep up.
Yeah.
And command and just attract so much of your adoration and your feelings. I think it's a daily practice to kind of check those thoughts, check your heart posture. Because you might, like I said, it might not be what you've outwardly expressed, but it could be what you're always working towards, what you're always thinking about. And for me, my idols, I wrote some down as you were talking. I would say just hard work and accomplishments and success. And one personal challenge of mine has been to wake up and give God the first part of my day. And my parents taught me to do that. I remember doing that when I was younger. But now I'm like, oh, get up. And the most important thing I think to do is read investment news, or, get up, get dressed so I can hurry up and get to my to-do list and what I think is the most important. So it's really hard. I was like, God, I still read. I'll read y'all right before bed when I'm dead tired. I'm giving God the worst part of me in that day. I think fellowship's important. So if you read, it's not to be so literal. Like, everyone's schedule is different. Do what's best for you. But I know in my heart that I'm not giving him the best part of my day, because I think like, remember we talked about trust. I trust you with my day. I just have stuff to do. I'll get back. And it has been a practice of mine since we've been on this reading plan. I haven't been perfect at all, but I'm going to take time to not rush to anything, to not rush to the hard work and the success and the accomplishments and the results that I talked about a little bit last time, and say, God, I'm going to give you my day. Yeah. Because no work I do today is more important than my relationship with you, than what you want me to do today. And it's it's a daily struggle. I still struggle.
Yeah. And I mean, literally, amen to everything you're saying, because I do think it's like a daily heart check. Yeah. Right? Like, I think, I can't remember which scripture it is, but it's in Proverbs. It's got like, search my heart. And essentially like, find anything in there that's not for you. Right? Like, search it. And I also just think that, like, when I'm thinking about this idol thing, because I'm with you, sometimes like when I'm really, really focused on a project, or I'm really, really focused on something that I'm working on, it almost takes up like every aspect of my mind and my emotions, right? Like,
it consumes me. And like I said, it's not about the religious nature of, when you read your Bible, which part of the day, like fellowship with God is important, but it's the heart posture.
Right.
It's the heart posture.
Yeah. And what I think about that is just like, it all turns into my own effort, and like, that is going to be faulty. It's going to be limited. It's going to be, and like, even those things that I'm getting from this idol that I have in my life is always going to be void of something.
Yes.
Right. Whereas when God is in his rightful place, when I place him and when I view him, and when my heart is in the right posture, that literally becomes like the launching point for me to be able to do everything else
Right.
truly and fully well.
And it's the best foundation that you can launch from. And I think we talked a little bit about how like sometimes it's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you interact with. We're all on YouTube and Instagram and all of this. It's like what you see, what you experience that can start to form those idols. Versus, you know, obviously a relationship with God takes faith. I think a lot of things come back to that.
Let me ask a question. What do you think? Because I'm thinking of stories that we've read in the scripture, and this is Old Testament, where it's like something good happened, and then they created an object to worship. Like, where do you think that comes from? Like, this thing already happened, and now I'm creating something with my own hands to worship it that wasn't there before.
Like, when do we do that in our own lives?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
When do we do that? Why do we do that?
Maybe it's, I don't know. It's almost like we get tricked, distracted into, like we fall in love with the result of a thing and not the source of the thing. And we're trying to model the result and worship that so it happens again.
Yeah.
God is our source and he blesses abundantly. And then he can bless you with the thing and you fall in love with the thing.
Yeah.
Instead of the source.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I love this thing. I want more of this thing. And you start to chase the thing and worship the thing and adore the thing. And really strong feelings of the thing. Instead of who gave it to you. Because you want more of it. Because it's good. Blessings feel good. They're amazing. They bring you joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus sticking with the source.
Yeah. And what makes that so hard?
Yeah.
That is
kind of back to the nature. It's the constant.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm wondering too how because I love what you're saying about like the way I hear it is almost like the blessings, the gifts that God gives you, we start to worship those rather than the source of it, like you're saying, right? And so, yikes, how people can become idols in your life. I think this is where it gets dangerous, especially I talk about church culture a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry. But how it gets really dangerous of like worshiping people.
That one's, yeah.
Because we see the gifts. We see the blessings. And how quickly that can turn around into worshiping yourself with pride.
Yikes. Yeah.
Right?
Oof. People when
like I think people really become our strongest idols sometimes in our lives. It's other people. My opinion.
That one's so large. I'm just trying to like break it down in my mind. Like,
yeah.
The people, I think it's a really, really big one. Obviously anything from celebrities to within the church, church leadership, to sometimes parents, if you're trying to live up to something, to, you're right.
Yeah.
The approval of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can see a person who can kind of embody everything that you want, and that coveting spirit kind of can create an idol.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it's really a daily heart check. They're everywhere. It's so easy to fall into it. And it could be a silent build. Silent build of an idol. Just grows in your heart, And I think sometimes you could not even recognize it sometimes. Because you're so in it. You're so in your life that it's like, it's hard to go back to the origin of when this thought started, when this desire started.
Yeah.
And it kind of has just slowly built in your heart, and it kind of is a motivator for what you wake up and do in a day.
Hey, real quick. Are you sick and tired of getting into the same fights with your partner over and over again? Are you sick of feeling misunderstood and disconnected? If so, I get it, which is why I created an ebook just for you. In Crushing Conflict, you're going to get a guide about how to get out of the chaos. You're going to learn why you keep getting stuck in the same cycle over and over again. You're going to learn how to get unstuck with several practical tools. And you're going to learn how you can create lasting change in your relationship. If that's you, I invite you to click the link in the description below and grab your copy today. I hope that blesses you. Yeah. I wonder, my brain is going to a couple of things. What does it look like to, like, what's the difference between idolizing something and appreciating something or having gratitude towards something or someone?
Yeah, like how do you know the difference?
Yeah.
Because I think you can. I think it's possible to admire a thing without idolizing it. It's almost just like, I don't know if it's like, if it's subjective, but how much a thing can consume you.
Mm-hmm.
And if when you see the thing,
yeah,
what do you credit it with? Like I admire,
yeah,
there are other women that I follow. I admire them, but I don't forget their source either. Yeah. And maybe that's what it is. Like I don't give her the credit for being her solely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, it's another woman of God. She's doing this, but I remember God too. So I think it's sort of like,
yeah. In my mind,
I think the root of
yes.
Yeah.
You kind of you asked me a question, and I think the last one where we were talking about like how do you think? So I'm literally I have a visual.
Yep.
And so like my visual of this is kind of like, am I looking up, down, or across at someone? Like that's kind of how I'm
visual
seeing this.
Thinkers, man, yeah. That's good. That's really good. Yes. Because when you think of reverence, you're like, oh,
yeah. I do think that reverence is important in terms of like recognizing position, right? Like God is just so good and so powerful, and I do think that He is. Lord, man, see, in my mind, I'm like even thinking like when we worship, we think like we go up, right? And what God does is He comes down, and there is this like almost like a cross nature of He literally comes to like meet you where you are at, and I think there's something so powerful about that because of how powerful He actually is, how big He is, how in awe you can be of Him, and yet He chooses, here's the humility piece, He chooses to come down and meet us where we are. Now with people, humility is beautiful, and yet to not idolize like, oh, they're so humble and so whatever, and so like I'm lifting them up again. Right. My brain is going like, where are they in terms of where am I looking at them? Am I lifting them up? Am I tearing them down? Or am I able to look across? Am I able to look across at the person? And one, that says a lot about them, but it also says a lot about me. Like, where do I see myself?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's easier to fall into the trap of idling a person or a thing when you don't have true relationship there.
Oh, tell me.
So I think kind of you getting at how when we worship, we go up, God comes to be with us. We worship, we find, fellowship in that, togetherness in that. But when you idolize something, it's just like there's a distance in that to me. There's a distance there. When I think of something up high and it never comes down, there's a distance there.
It's good.
For example, it's hard to covet something. Say someone's amazing, got everything that you wish to have. It's hard to covet what they have when you know them and when you know their story. Now, if you do covet and you know that, that's a different heart posture. But if you can know them and do a relationship with them,
yeah,
because they're close in proximity, it's hard for that person to be an idol, I think.
That's
I think it's hard to, same things with like success or wealth, if money, there's like a distance, like in a way to money. Like it's something, you know, paper literally we made. Like there's not a natural proximity to it. It's not, and how do you have a relationship with it?
Mm-hmm.
You can. There's a relationship with money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it has to do with
closeness and distance. That is so good.
Yes, and yes, relationships with money. So if it's something that seems so far away, hard to come by, all these things, a mystery, it's really easy to put it up there and idolize it. But if you've been educated in it, if you had a family that, you know, had good systems for how they handled money and invested and grew it, it can still be an idol if you're like in a spirit of greed or something. But it's in close proximity. You kind of know how this works.
Right.
You know the good, the bad, the ugly. You know that with more of it comes more responsibility. You know that. So I think it's a proximity. It's a distance. It's easy to have idols when it's far away because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't get it.
Right. Like imagine if you ever truly met like somebody, like your favorite celebrity or somebody that you really looked up to. You really start to get to know them intimately.
Right.
That elevation, that pedestal, right, starts to come down.
Right.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but because you have more of an intimate knowledge of them and you're saying, oh, they're just another person.
They're a human. Especially when you see like someone famous that you know, had adoration for. You see him in person for the first time. I think there's that shock, like, what? Your flesh. Oof. You're not an image. You're not just something like you're flesh and bone. You're here. You're not that tall. I thought you were taller. Like, it's like, it's a proximity. It's harder to idolize things that are, I think, are close in proximity.
Yeah.
And then when they're close in proximity, you can understand their true nature. And hopefully, in most times, when you understand something's true nature, you won't idolize it.
Right.
Because nothing should be idolized. So,
right.
You know, the one and only.
Right. There was another story in scripture, I can't remember. It said, oh, man, I'm horrible at this. I really want the story. But the story of someone in the Bible going to these people who had all of these idols and these statues, and they said, like, that one right there that you have labeled the unknown God, that's the God I'm talking about.
Yes. Oh, I don't remember which story that is. Yeah. I don't remember which story. Oh. I remember the story. Yes.
But I'm here to tell you about him.
That's the one.
Right. And he is so close. I think I love what you said about the relational piece. The closeness is truly, I think, the antidote, maybe, to idolizing is closeness, is intimacy, is relationship.
Right. And that's why God is I don't call God an idol. He's God.
Right. Right.
So I don't call him an idol at all. He is God, and he is way better than an idol could ever be because he's doing relationship with you. He's not just in a place of reverence. He's mighty, he's righteous, but he loves you and he wants to be near you. And that idols, I don't see that way.
Yeah. Ooh, idols. This idea of idolizing, there is a sense of you keep the distance.
Right.
If we get close,
you keep the distance. Yeah.
We get close, you're gonna see all of it.
All of it. Yeah.
What are other idols that we can think through? I'm sorry, the one that came to me was like just people. I just feel like it's a really big one. You said money.
Yeah, money, success, beauty. Especially in the age of all the things online, it's like you idolize a certain standard of beauty.
Yeah. Feeling or expression of reverence or adoration. I think it was results.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, this is just making me think of, it's almost like we gather all of these things that we have, that we would adore or reverence. And it's almost like, and why? Why do we gather? Why do we want more of this thing that we idolize? Like, what does it say about ourselves? And I think a part of it is we almost think that like if we have more of it close, not even closer, if we just obtain it. So I'm thinking like results. If I have more of these things, then it almost puffs up this internal idol within yourself, which is almost like this false sense of, look at how good I am now. Like it's a sense of pride, I think. And pride, I think, is its own idol that we have.
Yeah.
We love to make ourselves the God of our own lives. And so I just think the question is like, what motivates you to place something else on a pedestal? Like, why do I need it on a pedestal?
I mean, it might tie a little bit to what we talked about in like reclaiming, kind of like where your identity is rooted, why your identity is rooted in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a place that God didn't intend for it to be rooted in.
Yeah.
Because it's just lots of distractions. I mean, we're fighting two natures. We're spirit, we're flesh. And my flesh wants things. It's not perfect. And my flesh can be rooted in things that it shouldn't be, and desires. And
it does go back to identity.
Yeah, it goes back to identity, I think.
Can I say I think sometimes we idolize marriage?
Oh, relationships, yes. Wow. Oh, yeah.
Marriage is a gift from God. It's another blessing. Yes. Yikes. It's another blessing. It's another thing that God gives us.
Right.
And then we turn the gift into an idol.
Yeah, but the very success of marriage is so dependent on God. That's where we talked about earlier. Is like the blessing, you forget the source.
Yeah.
It's like you see a good marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from a Christian lens. You see a good marriage.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, that looks great. They do this, they have kids. But it's like, who's the source of a good marriage? You can't separate it. If you worship the marriage, it's like, girl, you have two flawed people.
Yeah. How many times? Well, and I will tell, in my story, it was almost like your identity is secured when you have someone that chooses you.
Yeah.
In marriage. And I think for a lot of women, because at the end of the day, usually the man is
right.
The man is asking the woman. But how in singleness we idolize marriage as if your singleness is evidence of some sort of flaw in your identity.
Right.
And marriage is some sort of evidence of some greatness in your identity. Like those two things, like that's a little scary.
It is.
Because marriage is not God's only way of blessing you and or refining you. It's one of the hardest ways.
Oh, yes. yes.
So I think marriage can be an idol.
There, I know we have a marriage episode, but yeah, it could absolutely. It can be. Oh yeah, I'll save that for that. But I'm trying to think if there are any other ones.
Any other idols? Marriage, money.
Yeah.
Fame. Power. Success.
Ourselves or what we want to be.
What we want to be.
What we want to be.
Tell me more about
this image of ourselves.
Yeah.
Kind of, again, when our identity is not rooted in the right place, and you have this like vision of yourself, what you have, what you look like, and the result, again, the blessings is what you idolize, like kind of like that future state of what you would want. That you're kind of chasing, and it's me, and you're doing everything in service to yourself.
Yikes.
To me, there's so many.
It really
I think
is.
there's anything that takes the place of, yeah, your adoration consumes you.
Yeah. I literally think if we could summarize it, we can idolize anything that is a gift from God.
Yes.
And then replace the source with the resource.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a constant heart check. They can creep up.
Yeah.
Again, we're flesh and spirit, and it happens, but.
So what do we do? How do we shift? Constant heart checks.
Yeah, that I think comes from doing relationship with God. It's really hard to check yourself. We talked about this. It's kind of hard to like help yourself sometimes. Maybe most of the time. I don't know. It's difficult to get outside of you and reflect on you all the time. But if you have fellowship with the right people, you have people that can hold you accountable. I mean, just do relationship with God, do relationship with the right people.
Yeah. And do relationship with people who aren't, how I said this earlier, like, don't stay in relationship or do relationship with people just who are like an echo chamber, right? Who are just repeating back to you what you already see or know about yourself or whatever, right? Like, be willing to be in spaces where you feel challenged, where you feel like they are pointing you to God and helping to refine you through that process.
Right.
Maybe they can check the idols.
You don't need yes people.
No.
Yeah, they can check it.
Yes.
I think it's we're doing relationship. Literally keep like God first.
Yeah.
That first. And it's harder. It's easier said than done. But
yeah.
It's a constant process.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a scripture that has been kind of stuck in me is God is working in you, giving you the power and the desire to do what pleases him.
Right.
Right. So to continue to kind of lean into that. Not only is he going to
because you don't do it by your own strength. You don't do it by your own strength. Yes.
No.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Well, he'll give you the power, but he'll also give you the desire, right? Like the motivation, like I want to do this.
You pray over your heart. I do that. I'm like, Lord, help give me a heart more like Christ.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Because I don't know where I need to be searched. I don't know all the time where I need to change. But like, Lord, you see me. So can you give me a heart like Christ?
Open my eyes to see what you want me to see. Open my ears to hear it.
Yes.
Keep my heart tender in that so I can be sensitive to it.
Yep.
I hear that.
I agree. So touchy. Touchy one.
Yeah, it is. It is. No, let me not say that. I'm not going to say it. That was it. So we would love to hear just kind of, like what your thoughts are in terms of like what idols do you have in your life? Or could be possible idols in your life. Like, how do you check yourself with that?
Yeah, start with like reflecting on what's consuming you.
Yeah.
Those extreme feelings of adoration and motivation for you, and be a good thought exercise to start to peek into your heart.
I love it. I love it. Hope that blesses y'all.
Yes.
See ya.